Assalamu alaikum. This is Zeba Hassan with Mommyingwhilemuslim. We are waiting for my co-host Ozma Jaffrey. I'm imagining this whole time change, daylight savings nonsense has got us all screwed up, because as you may or may not know, we actually record on multiple time zones. I'm in the East Coast, though today I happen to be in Chicago Central Time. Ozma and Joe are actually in the West Coast, though I don't believe they changed their clock. So I'm assuming she's going to pop in at any point. We're hoping all is okay. Like I mentioned, I'm still at my parents' house, leaving literally right after this recording. It's been like a whirlwind of excitement being with my family, having the cousins see each other, supporting my dad's campaign. And I do have to say, whatever happens, whatever the results are, it's nice to see that something he's been secretly dreaming about and passionate about, he's been able to kind of follow through and carry through and potentially paving the way for somebody else or for himself. So March 17th here in Chicago are the primaries. So make sure everybody get out the vote, regardless of who you vote for. Exercising our civic responsibility is what we need to be doing. I am blessed to be able to introduce our guest today. I met her actually at a mutual friend's book signing, and just her energy and her positivity instantly attracted me to her. And then when I actually got to know her and heard a little bit of her story, I was just shocked and surprised that she was able to carry on the way that she is and be essentially an example of strength. So I wanted to take a quick moment and introduce Saira Sufi. She is a child loss experiencer, a bone marrow failure awareness medical research advocate, a Muslim, a Kansan, a mother of twins, the mother of an aplastic anemia warrior, a recent divorcee, an event manager, and an honest and unintentional writer. Thank you so much and welcome, Saira.
Thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Like I said, I actually met you at a book signing recently, and I really was so instantly attracted to your energy. Sorry for that, which is always, when we're doing things live, you're going to get some bloopers coming in there. And then when I actually learned and read about your story and heard from you, I was just extremely shocked and so proud of how you have survived. Can you give our listeners a little bit of background about you and what it is that I'm even talking about, Saira?
Thank you, Zeba. It was great meeting you as well through another Saira and Muslim Girls Rise. So my story, I had twins in 2011, Hadi and Zechariah. And in 2017, my life completely changed. Hadi was diagnosed with aplastic anemia, which is a bone marrow failure disease. And it means basically your bone marrow doesn't produce red blood cells, white blood cells, or platelets. Hadi was treated at the NIH, and he needed a bone marrow transplant because immunotherapy didn't work. And at that point, I was terrified. I was told that Zachariah wasn't his match. And so we had to go to the registry. And luckily, Hadi had many, many matches. And his donor was so gracious and gave her cells very quickly. And Hadi had 2 transplants. But unfortunately, neither of them took. And he returned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in October of 2018. And since then, I have worked hard on figuring out how I want to grieve and how I want to make sure Hadi's legacy continues, and the importance of making sure people know about aplastic anemia and joining the registry and donating to the Hadi Abdul Rashid Research Fund so we can find a cure for this beast of a disease. All the while making sure that I do right by his twin brother, Zechariah, who has been my rock through all of this. Shortly after, I guess not shortly, but less than a year after Hadi passed, I became a divorcee, which is an interesting term. I was blindsided by Zechariah's father. Zachary and Hadi's father came home to an empty house after I had gone to a trip in California, a personal trip that I thought was okay. But after being hugged and kissed by my, I guess, ex-husband at the airport, I came home to an empty house. So dealing with that has been interesting and figuring out how to maneuver that. And shortly after that, my house caught on fire.
Oh my
The
God.
Verizon BIOS cable box caught on fire. Alhamdulillah, Zachary and I are in an apartment, and the house is being rebuilt. And I am looking at this as Allah's way of making me restart my life.
So the fact that you even said that, let me just say, like having that type of attitude and positivity, when someone else, like myself, like I will just speak for myself. I can't speak for somebody else. Like I don't even know how I would be able to move on from there. Oh, what do you attribute to that? Like how did you manage to find that strength when it would otherwise take that life force? Like I just can't even, I don't even have the words for it, Saira. So like what did you do and what did you use to kind of get you through such a horrific literally 2 years is what it kind of sounds like, starting in October of 2018 when Hadi passed. Like what, how did
So,
you get through that?
Hadi, um, before this interview, I figured I'm not going to prepare too much, but I'm going to try to figure out how I can get through this without tearing up. But I look at Hadi's picture right now. Hadi's name in Arabic means guide. And that was it. Throughout all of his procedures and pokes and dealing with the ridiculousness of the doctors giving me contradictory information, Hadi would be the one who would say, Mommy, dua. He always knew how to calm me
Oh,
down. Just, I have amazing kids. And so throughout that, I turned to him first, obviously, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but then it is my guide, Hadi, and Zechariah too, of, yeah, this sucks. Fully admitting that this sucks, but what have I been given in this life that I am grateful for? And also admitting that it's okay to break down. And I have many, many times. Um, but, and I think what's important in realizing that everybody grieves in their own way. And while I'm not supposed to make too many disparaging comments against Zachariah's father per the settlement, all I'll say is that this happened for a reason. And I hate hearing that, right? As you grieve and you hear all of these different phrases of, oh, he's in a better place, or it happens for a reason. But there is some truth to it. And that's sort of what keeps me going of, okay, I could wallow in tears, and I do think tears are very healthy and therapeutic, but I can't not let people know about Hadi, and that's why I try to keep going and looking. I don't want to say silver lining, but I try to be grateful for what I have been given.
and we are joined by my beautiful co-host, Ozma Joffrey, and we have matching backgrounds today. She has been listening in, like I mentioned earlier, to our Facebook Live listeners. We are on so many different time zones right now. So the fact that we had a little bit of a glip
I
in
messed it
timing,
up.
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ozma, for joining us. Saira was just kind of giving us a quick summary of the horrific uh, horrific is the word that I'm going to use. She is not using that
Yeah.
word, everybody. 2 years, because I just couldn't imagine being able to go through something like this and come out the other end. And she is literally a testament to that, being able to go through three of the most a fire, a child passing away, a divorce, and coming out on the other side as a survivor. And we're listening to her story right now, Ozma.
Yeah. No, I got the end of it, and I had read what she had sent ahead of us, and I couldn't even get through it without crying. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is incredible. Like, I've never heard of anything like this, and I'm just amazed that you're actually standing up straight. You're super,
Thank you.
super amazing person." Walaikum salam.
And by the
Um,
way, she does this in supporting other people too, because part of her mission, which is so much on par with what Mommy Well Muslim wants to do, is helping support other Muslim women. And I have to give her kudos to that too. So that's something that needs to be mentioned. Because like I said, I met her when she was supporting another Muslim sister. And I was like, this is what we need to do in our community, is lift each other up. And she is definitely
yeah.
exemplifies that. So I wanted to mention that as well.
Thank you.
So is that grief support that you provide through the Team Weejuns as well, or is that something that you do on top of everything else that you're doing?
It's not, I wouldn't say it's something that's organized. It's just, I think, through aplastic anemia, luckily, because I have been fairly vocal, if with aplastic anemia, if somebody has heard of it, I usually become the, hey, why don't you talk to Saira? But Zeba and I, again, maybe that is something that Team Weejuns will move towards, but I think it's been fascinating to me to hear from others of how can we support a friend who is going through a really hard time. And not that I am an expert, but I want to turn to those who are, but I also want to say, like, this is what helped me. It very well might not help the next person, but this is what helped me. And grief is very, very tough, particularly with all of the three things that I have gone through, because I think people just often don't know what to say when you've lost a son, a child, when you've been part of the community for so long and suddenly there's a divorce and nobody knows what to say, or how to support you. And then the fire. Again, these are all things of, and I'm learning. I think that's a very good point of grief support. What does that mean? What does it mean to just say, hey, rather than not reaching out to somebody, just say, you don't know what to say. And that's what I told Zeba. That's, I appreciate that rather than there just being silence. And I love talking about my son. And I've learned from others, oh, it's okay to talk about this and it's healthy and it's okay to cry your eyes out. And I think looking at our prophets and looking at our faith of, yeah, how many of them cried their eyes out? Still having faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but acknowledging that it's a very tough situation.
So Ozma mentioned Team Weejuns. Can you actually talk to our audience about what this is? This is your nonprofit you started in Hadi's name, correct?
Yeah. In honor of Hadi, Team Weejuns came about while we were at NIH, at the National Institutes of Health, and Hadi was going through treatment. I came up with, we got this. That was what came to mind. That's what I always said to myself. But there was also this component of patience. You have to wait. They had 2 bone marrow transplants as well as lymphocyte infusions, each of which you had to wait 6 weeks to see if they were successful. So sabr, right? Patience. So Hadi combined the two of we got this and patience. So Weejuns. So Team Weejuns came out of that. And at the beginning of Team Weejuns, when after Hadi passed, I was making sure to let people know about the importance of diversifying the registry, the bone marrow registry, of getting more South Asians and minorities on the registry so people would have the chance at a match. And then in addition to that, while bone marrow transplants are the cure right now, cure being a loose term, I also decided that we needed a research fund through the Aplastic Anemia Foundation, because I want there to be a cure rather than just the bone marrow transplant, because as any bone marrow transplant recipient will tell you, yes, they're successful, but it's not the easiest route. So I'm hoping with the research fund, we can fund an up and coming researcher through a grant to find a cure. So that's originally what, I've been in the nonprofit world most of my career, and I was, sort of A-type personality of have to do something after my son passed, and I didn't want anyone to forget him. So that's where Team Weejuns came from. And then the blog started because I had started writing. I was never really a writer, but I wrote to let people know updates about Hadi. And then I was, like, okay, people actually seem to be interested in this. So that's sort of now of, at the beginning of this, of figuring I would, Zachariah's father and I would come up with a board, and we would sell things for the research fund and do events. So now I'm at a point of figuring out what the next steps are of continuing with the research fund. That's what I definitely want to get funded. But what's next of grief support, and also making sure that in-house patients and caregivers, particularly at the NIH, are taken care of. So a lot of planning, but looking forward to seeing what comes of Team Weejuns.
So you mentioned the divorce, and one of the concerns that Zeba and I've had since the beginning of Mommyingwhilemuslim is, hey, nobody knows, we don't know how to support single moms, and single moms often don't get included in conversations, don't get included in big events, and sometimes with divorces, I think friends have to pick sides, and she may fall off the map completely. Growing up, we saw this happen a lot, and we don't want this to be, how our generation continues. So how can we better support our single moms with kids in our community now? Like, what is it that you need from us?
Thank you, Ozma. That's an incredible question and pretty loaded, I'll be honest, but I think you hit on a few things of choosing sides. I've been in this community for, what are we at? Almost 19 years. First, I grew up in Kansas, so I still have my Kansas community, and those who have reached out have been amazing. But I think nobody, because it was so sudden nobody knows what to say, right? So I think for me, it's twofold of, I don't really need you to take sides, but I do need you to say, man, that sucks. And that's really it. I think acknowledging it or even just the question. And I'm not sure I have the answer. I don't want to speak for every single mother out there, because I'm in a very interesting position. We're all in different boats. Zechariah's father is still hands-on, but I am dealing with all of those emotions. And so I think it's reaching out. And at the same time, I fully recognize how difficult it is for people to do that. How can we help you? But even when I was married and all of that, scheduling is hard, right? But planning a play date, or, hey,
Oh, yeah.
can we, the meal trains were incredible. That was very supportive and very helpful. Or, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go to the gym? Or, and I think I've figured out the friends who will tell me all of the things I don't want to hear, but need to hear, if that makes sense. So you kind of, you figure out who's going to be your cheerleader, right? And it very well could be here's a coffee. Like, I have no idea what to say to you, but let me know what I can do. The smallest gestures mean the world. And for me, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, in case, we can't come over, we can't provide a service. But those who reached out and said, hey, Saira, thinking about you, love you. It's such a small gesture, and I don't think that just has to be for single mothers. I think you do that for your friends. I think you do it, girl empowerment, women empowerment, all of that. And in no way do I mean this to be sexist, but for the single moms out there who might need a man's help once in a while I'm also 5 foot, right? So I luckily have a lot of neighborhood friends and who will come over in an instant to hang something up for me or whatever, because they truly care and you can see that in their eyes. So I can do that. Like, okay, yeah, so what, I guess it's a very long answer, but of saying, like, between just reaching out, just saying, hey, the situation sucks. I'm thinking of you. I wish I could do more. If it's a religious person or not, you're in my duas. What can we do for Zechariah? And at some point, at the same time, sometimes you just need to let the person vent. I don't necessarily need advice. I just need to say, ugh. So it's a combination. It's a very convoluted answer. And I don't think there's one way, but I would say, as far as support, just reaching out and saying, hey, thinking of you. And I guess the last thing I'll say is because I've been.
Oh, God.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'd say I had a very hard time asking for help, right? When Hadi was sick. After he passed, it was sort of, okay, that's what people want. They want to help. Let me give them something tangible. So I've gotten much better about that. Like, if somebody will say, hey, can we put a meal train together for you? Yeah, sure. Can we have Zechariah for a play date? Yep. So, because it's a pride thing as well. Like, yes, Zeba talked about, how am I getting through this? There's a part of me that wants to say, I've got this, right? Like, but it takes a village. But going through a divorce at the same time, which part of that village is truly there for you?
Yeah. What I was saying is, it sounds like what you're saying is everything we do for every other girlfriend, regardless of what her relationships look like, just show up. That's what's really, really important. Like, you want to ask her, hey, can I cook a meal for you? Hey, can I pick up your kid after school because you have a lot on your plate right now? I feel like we just need to do that double for our single moms, because it may be that they're still in a place where they can't ask us for help.
Yeah, I think that's well said.
Well, I'll tell you this, Saira, because you are 5 foot, if you need me to reach something at a taller shelf, I'm happy to help you with that.
Yes, we can both help with that. Absolutely. I can't hang anything though. It's never straight. I need like a level and like 3 people behind me telling me left or right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else do we have? Did we talk about shared parenting already before I got on?
No, we didn't. So before we do that, I did want to ask, just so you know, because I think this is a little bit of the elephant in the room, because Hadi was a twin, and I had the good fortune of meeting Zachariah, and he is just the cutest, sweetest thing in the whole world. Like, literally helped me sell some books, sat right next to me, and I was like, oh my God, this kid is gonna be something. But how is he handling all of this, right? Being the survivor, being a twin, and now, like you mentioned, his positivity and his energy is a support to you. How is he doing, and what kind of support can the community give him, the brother left behind?
That's a good question. Zechariah, yeah, that kid. I think that's pretty much the reaction always that he gets of, oh, what an amazing child. And he is. And, luckily, Zachariah is a very talkative child, sometimes to a fault. But I made sure to get him in therapy pretty early on, myself included. And so at least for him, we're mothers, right? We want the very best for our child and children. I made sure he had an outlet for that, but also made sure he could talk to me about whatever he wanted. And so it's fascinating watching him and figuring out how much I ask him about Hadi. Other times, what works for him is he really wants the research fund funded, and so he's very creative and coming up with ideas. And early on, he started with these videos, and so he'll come up with ideas. And I think that's remembering his brother. And once in a while, he'll calmly, quietly just say, "Mommy, I miss Hadi." And that sucks. And it's, very, very hard to handle, but we talk about it. What I try to do is with Zachariah, which with all of my kids, I said, what are you grateful for every day? And then I also now have added, what's a good memory of Hadi? And there's some that he will come up with that just crack me up of, oh yeah, Mommy, remember when we slept in the same bed? Did you know we were sneaking candy in? And so just giving him that outlet. And he wants to have a connection with NIH where Hadi was treated, because that was his life too. His memories. So the first couple of times, I always have made an impact. A very important decision to me was to remain relationships with those people at NIH who treated who treated Hadi. They knew me and Amr. Sorry, that's Zachariah's father. And so a lot of it is hard to go back to remembering, but it has been therapeutic at the same time because those people knew Hadi and Zachariah as twins, as crazy little boys, and that's helped, I think, with Zachariah and his grieving.
I can't even imagine what that feels like for you, the fact that they're twins and, you know, you're always going to see Hadi.
Always. And some of the movements, they are fraternal twins, but some of the movements that Zachariah will do are the facial. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's Hadi. And so sometimes it's very tough. Other times it's such a blessing. Yeah, I think what's hard for me is seeing other twins of, like, oh, I will always get, to this day, I will always get 2 birthday cakes, but thinking about high school graduation and all of that. But then there's thinking about Jannah and thinking about what will that be like, inshallah. So yeah, I will always be a mother of twins. And luckily I have Zachariah to see. And he sometimes knows. I mean, I think we laugh once in a while because it is clearly obvious that Hadi is giving us a sign. Hadi was a huge Paul Simon fan. And so we'll walk into a place and all of a sudden his favorite song will come on. And Zachariah and I will look at each other like, yep, we got it, Hadi. How you doing?
That's really cool. I'm always, I always wonder, like, what do moms say? Like, I'm a mother of how many kids? But I like that you say that I'm a mom of twins. I have
So
this
that
many
one's
kids.
That one's a tough one, and I'll say it because we haven't. I think we're gonna segue into the co-parenting. When I became a divorcee, I also lost a stepdaughter. So Lena was part of my life. So since she was 2.5, and she's now 12. And so, how many kids do you have? Depends on the day, right? Like, of what I'll say. I used to always say, oh, I'm always going to say 3. But sometimes you're just exhausted. Like, and if Zachary is with me, sometimes, as I said, he'll say, oh, well, this is the situation of poor kid.
He'll speak for you.
He'll speak for me, and people will look at me like, oh, is he telling the truth? Because, the kid will say, my twin brother died. Then my father left. My father left, and then our house caught on fire. And so they look at me like, is this true?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is. Actually, it is true. So now I have no idea what my future will be with Lena in my future. But for now, I usually say, mother of twins. We lost one, unfortunately, in 2018.
That's, I just don't even know how you deal. Like, you're freaking amazing. I know we're talking about hard things. Let's talk about something that's even harder, and that's co-parenting.
Okay.
What does that look like for you when you've lost a child?
Yeah. Oh, man. All right. So I'll be honest in saying, like, oh, wait, I'm not supposed to say anything disparaging. That's what was written into the settlement agreement. That being said, I will say co-parenting is a term that I've learned to hate. I will actually use the word hate because I don't know what it means. It's such a nebulous term, and what does it mean? Like, I am sorry, but you told Zachary is the one who told me that my husband, his father, wanted a divorce. I don't care whose side you're on. In no way is it ever okay to discuss these sort of situations with children before you discuss with your spouse. That being said, I have worked hard at trying to be as civil as possible, and doing what's best for Zechariah. Have I failed multiple times? Yes. Have I let anger get the most of me? But is that sort of what I think Zechariah's father would turn to and say, see, that's why I had to leave. But it's juggling a lot. It's okay. Let me figure out what's best for me mentally, but what's best for Zechariah. And it's a lot of reducing your pride as well. So I knew fairly early on, once I heard him say, I think the 3rd time of, I have no interest in reconciliation. Okay, we have to go through an attorney. We have to figure out a temporary custody agreement. And I'm in a unique situation because I was a step parent and I saw a lot of how custody could work. And also, what, as an 8-year-old, what does Zechariah want? What does he need? What's important for me to realize? He is 8 years old, and so he can't make full decisions on his own. But am I doing what I'm doing because I'm so angry at his father? Or do I really think that this is best for him? So I have figured out, I think we all know how to push our ex-spouse's buttons, right? And I have worked hard with my therapist of, okay, when do I need to respond? What is best for Zechariah? Versus, is this me just trying to prove a point? Zachary is 8 years old, right? So in this just, we're figuring it all out of, we haven't had our first summer. And figuring, I know Zachariah, mommy, this is what I want. And as I think any therapist or person dealing with this situation will say, you know, try not to talk negatively against the other parent. What's really difficult for me is I don't have a poker face, which I think is fairly obvious. And Zechariah will call me out on it. Hadi did as well. You're upset with daddy. Ugh, you know, how do I respond to that? I've gotten very good at trying to change the subject. We come up with some very odd topics, but at the end of the day, it's day by day. I want to plan. I'm a planner. I want everything to be planned. I can't. Okay, this is how his father will respond. And I think it needs to be also said of I was part of an extended family as well for 10 years. And now it's, oh, somebody's engagement party is happening here. Can I have Zechariah? What do I do? What's best for Zechariah? Versus, did I already have plans? And I think it's very early on. And I luckily am part of a couple of support groups that, you know, again, I have very good friends who will say, yeah, he's being ridiculous. You step up. And a shout out to my parents as well, who have seen me go through a lot and are very supportive and will also take me off of a ledge and say, there's no point, ignore it. I don't know if that answered your question, but my main point is co-parenting is not the easiest, and it's parallel parenting is another term that I think might be something that I go forward with using. And we'll see how the future plays out.
Inshallah. It's really hard when we're asking you these really tough questions when you're literally in the thick of it. So we understand that and appreciate whatever candid answers you have. And perhaps in a year from now or 2 years from now, you might look back at this and think, okay, that was the frame of reference. That was the time and the place. This is what I was feeling. And perhaps, inshallah, you're coming off at a different viewpoint in a year from now, which case we're going to have to invite you back on to see, okay, you've gone through it. What kinds of tips and suggestions for survival do you have? But while we have you on, for sisters that are actually going through the process, do you have a couple of tips for them? Like maybe your top 5 tips that you wish somebody had told you that you can kind of share with our audience going through something similar that you're going through right now with your divorce?
5 tips. I think for me, it was responding only when necessary. My MO has always been respond right away, right? I respond to emails right away. I respond to texts right away. Sometimes take a step back, figure out if it's anger or what is the best way. It doesn't need to happen right away. Secondly, figure out what works. And, you know, divorce, co-parenting, right? You love your kid. And you know this even, you know, even when you were married, you got to take some time for yourself. For me, Orange Theory has been amazing and exhausting. But I'll also like, okay, but I don't beat myself up at the same time for having a brownie sundae yesterday, right? Sometimes it's what I need. So don't beat yourself up. You think, I mean, for me, many times, what did I do? Like, what did I? It's taken me a long time to say, yeah, I have faults. I think every spouse has faults. Every marriage has issues. And divorce is allowed in our religion. Not necessarily the way that mine came about. I don't agree with the way that it was put forward, but nothing that I did warranted the way that I was treated, and allowing myself those affirmations. You know, as I'm 40 years old now, and all of the cheesy stuff that I never thought I would be part of like, heck yeah, I'm going to tell myself how awesome I am. I still have I'll admit I have hard times of hearing like, oh, you're awesome or whatever, but at least I can say it to myself. Like, yeah, I try to make myself a compliment every day. And I think as mothers, we beat ourselves up, whether single mothers, married mothers, all like mom guilt is there and it always will be. But I look at Zechariah or I go to Hadi's grave and I cry my eyes out and think, hey, I did something at least, right? I might be going through heck now. Still think Zachary is in the room, so I can't say hell. But what will matter in 5 years, right? Or how will this look in 5 years? Or even in a week, like, is this going to matter? Right? Is it really essential that I put my foot down on this? So you give up a lot, right? As I said, I'm a planner, so learning what anxiety is and panic attacks was quite a bit of an eye-opener, but working towards living in the moment and enjoying it. I don't know how many that is, if that was 5, but then also support, right? As I said, figure out, I think look within first, right? Sometimes I've recognized that, fine, I get it, Alyssa Manawatala, you're telling me I'm not getting the advice I want, so it's turn to you and you alone. But at the same time, turn to your support that you know will help you.
That's all really, really helpful for us, because I feel like everything you're saying can be applied to every single one of us. Like when we have any kind of challenge, albeit like what you faced is every mom's nightmare, and to come out with such grace and dignity and your sabr, is amazing. I think you're a model of resilience that we can use for our own purposes, inshallah, for the minor things that we happen to face. But we so appreciate you coming on today, Saira, and sharing like the most raw parts of your life and your mommying journey. So jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for doing that today and being so open and honest.
Thank you.
This episode is dedicated to all those parents who face our worst nightmare and do it with courage, love, and faith. And inshallah, like our love and dua will always be with you guys. And we do hope that we can check in with you periodically so you can give us updates, inshallah. All right. Thanks for joining us, audience. Assalamu alaikum, everyone.